Hey guys, welcome back to Suburban Ranch. So today we're going to be revisiting a project that we previously completed on our 1990 GMC K1500, and that's the replacement of the lower steering column bearing. We previously used a stock replacement unit, but we recently received a new cartridge style bearing from a company down in Texas called Wolff Engineering, and we're going to show you how that new bearing compares and how to install it. All right, so first thing we need to do is remove the steering shaft. So we'll go ahead and break this bolt loose. Next up, we'll see if we can work this intermediate shaft off of the steering column itself. So there we go. It's nice to have a little hammer, especially one with the plastic end, to kind of tap that off. So next up, we'll disassemble our old lower steering column bearing. Start by taking off this snap ring. That's what it looks like. Pull off the collar. So there we go. And then the bearing itself here. So it is a pretty tight fit getting over the end of that steering shaft. I've got a little puller that we might be able to use to help with that. I've just set up a little 3-jaw puller here so that we can pull this old bearing off. And I'll just run this center screw in and it should pull it right off of the shaft. We've bottomed out our puller here. Let's see if we can get it off the rest of the way just by hand. Not quite. So I've swapped out for a small socket that will fit inside of the bearing, so we should be able to continue pulling this entire lower steering column bearing off of the shaft. So there we have it. There's a look at the old steering column bearing that we actually installed not that long ago. So it's got a plastic housing and then just a small ball bearing race inside. Now that we have everything taken apart, in the kit you'll find a small piece of emery cloth. So we'll just go around and clean up both the steering shaft and the inside of this steering column where our new bearing is going to ride. Just want it to be nice and smooth to the touch. Alright, that should do the trick. Here's a look at everything that comes in the box. So we'll start off here with this collar, and this goes over the existing steering column that's coming out of the truck. Inside of the collar is the new cartridge bearing, and I can tell you this is very, very smooth, really, really nice construction, especially when you compare it to the stock replacement bearing, which you can probably even hear that rotating. It's just a much, much cheaper style bearing. So this new cartridge bearing is very, very nice. We get a tool kit that includes sandpaper, it includes Loctite and some tools, and a very, very detailed instruction sheet. So off camera, I did a little bit more sanding on the steering shaft just so we could get our new bearing to slide on easily. So we'll go ahead and test fit the new cartridge bearing here. Okay, so it goes all the way in until the shoulder contacts the steering column here. And now in the instructions, it says that these tabs here can get kind of bent out with time. And so to take a pair of pliers and tighten them up so you have a snug fit to this cartridge bearing. You can see I have a bit of a wobbly fit right now, so I'll remove the bearing. And just work on bending these tabs in just a tiny bit here. There we go, that's a really nice snug fit. Next up, we'll test fit the collar. So here's a look at that collar. This should also be a snug fit to the steering column. Oh yeah, that's a really nice snug fit there. So it looks like we've got the column adjusted correctly to accept this new cartridge bearing. So we'll pull it all back off, get a little bit of Loctite on the set screws and put it back in place. Okay, so we've got some Loctite on each of these set screws on the cartridge bearing, and I have them installed so they're just flush with the inner surface of that cartridge bearing. So we'll go ahead and slide this back in position. Here we go. All right, so now that we've got the cartridge bearing installed, we'll go ahead and install our collar. So this collar has a witness mark right here. And just going over and looking at how this mounts onto the steering column jacket, I found that I should line up this little witness mark with the edge of this cutout. And when I do that, it'll allow each one of these set screws to go through a slot in this outer jacket and go in and actually contact the cartridge bearing itself. So by lining up, again, by lining up this tiny witness mark with the edge of that cutout, each of these set screws will go through one of these small slots in the outer collar. So we'll go ahead and position that now. We'll use the included 1/8 inch Allen key to tighten up each of these set screws. We'll just go around and tighten them evenly. So in the instructions, it says to be careful not to over tighten these set screws, and when they're torqued appropriately, they should be about flush with the outside of the collar. So we're almost there, just a couple more turns on a few of these, and we should be good to go. So those are all flush with the outside of the collar, and I can tell you that collar is very, very snug to the outer jacket of the steering column at this point. So now I think we're ready to tighten our inner cartridge bearing set screws. And we'll go 1/8 of a turn at a time until they're all snug. All right, guys, we've got these set screws tightened, and these are the ones with Loctite. And I can tell you for sure that is the most solid lower steering column bearing I have ever felt. This is a really, really nice system using a cartridge bearing and really a nice mounting solution as well. So last thing left to do is to reconnect our steering shaft. We'll slide our steering shaft back onto the steering column and put our through bolt back in position. And the nut back in place. And tighten everything back down. All right, guys, thanks for watching. As always, subscribe if you enjoyed this content. Also, if you have a truck with a manual transmission, comment below, because Wolff Engineering actually gave us a second bearing that works with columns on manual transmission trucks. So first person that wants it, we'll send it on out to you.